Technology got stronger, but we got weaker.
So we caught up with John here from Treyarch to find out a little bit what's going on behind closed doors here with Black Ops 2 at E3. What are you showing to people behind closed doors here?
Sure. Black Ops 2 has a couple different rooms, and today we're in our consumer theater. We've got fans coming through to check out the demo of Los Angeles as well as Singapore. And the Singapore level is special for us because it showcases our new Strike Force levels.
And the Los Angeles level was what we saw at the Microsoft press conference?
Correct. The Los Angeles level that you saw at the Microsoft press conference was sort of a more abbreviated version of what we're showing today. And the whole premise behind showing the LA level is to really acquaint players with what the near future looks like and understand that near future fiction. It's one that takes place in 2025. And when Treyarch was doing its research, we found a near future that is incredibly networked, relies on drone warfare and advanced robotics, and it's really the sort of future fiction that gives it, or future scenario that got us thinking, what would happen if a villain came along, hacked into it, and turned that military infrastructure against us? And that's exactly what happens in Los Angeles.
So what does the future bring to sort of the Call of Duty formula? Well, how does it change it?
Future brings a whole lot of new gameplay opportunities, all right? And that's from a most basic level. They're the weapons that you get to play with. In the Los Angeles level, there's a Sniper Storm sniper rifle, and that utilizes two pieces of technology that's really in prototype form now, and you can understand the gameplay implications. You've got an advanced optic that utilizes millimeter wave technology that allows you to see enemies behind cover, so all of a sudden if there's a camper hanging out behind a concrete pillar, you might want to think twice about that. You've also got an electronically charged projectile based on existing metal storm technology that can be charged up to penetrate that concrete pillar. So all of a sudden, campers beware. But then you sort of pull back a little bit and you take a look at the Strike Force levels. Now these Strike Force levels introduce branching storylines to the single player campaign, but within those levels, players can take control of any one of the toys on the battlefield, play as one of the members of the squad, take control of the quad rotor, take control of the cognitive land assault weapon, Overwatch mode, whatever you need to do to succeed at the level. All kinds of new gameplay.
We saw a lot of the drone action as well. It seems like an easy way to clear a path, but you still have to shoot your enemies, right?
Absolutely. Call of Duty is still about that core Call of Duty mechanic, that core experience where things begin to evolve 13 years out, and you saw this in the Los Angeles level, is you can begin to use sort of your quad rotors to do some of that squad cover. Send them ahead, have them help you do some of the dirty work, but man, you're the guy on the ground, you're making it happen.
So how is that mechanic? Because Call of Duty has always been sort of an intense action-based game. It's not really a tactical shooter where you've seen this sort of where you move something else, and so how do you control that, and how does the mechanics work out?
Sure. Well, make no mistake about it. Call of Duty is still delivering those epic set-piece moments that you've come to expect. And when you talk about the commitment to 60 frames per second, all that stuff that constitutes that core experience, still there. All right. But when you talk about things like the quad rotor, really it just it gives you new toys to play with, and it opens up your options on the battlefield. You can engage enemies a little differently. It's just ultimately it boils down to making more fun.
So is that something that you're going to have throughout the game, or is it specific missions where you will be controlling that as well? Or?
Well, during the course of single-player missions, you'll have different options at different times. I think Strike Force levels are the opportunities along the way where things really start to open up, because when you're put in a Strike Force level, all right, these are sandbox levels, very similar to how multiplayer might feel. There are objectives within, but this is also where you can take control of anything. And when I say you can play with all the toys, I mean you can play with all the toys. All your options are open. And then of course, we're not really getting into multiplayer, but you can begin to see where some of this stuff might take you a couple months down the road.
So speaking on that, I think that's what everyone's waiting to hear about, multiplayer,
sure.
Obviously. And this will also you will also be able to sort of leverage what has been built with Call of Duty Elites up until now. What's that like?
Well, we're not sharing much about multiplayer yet, all right? But what I can tell you is, when you talk to guys like our game design director, David Vonderhaar, the director of online, Dan Bunting, there are two things that are really sort of shaping their perspective on the development of the multiplayer mode. And first is this notion of challenging assumptions. It's like there's the core mechanic that millions of Call of Duty fans love, and you don't change that. But there are these things that could evolve, that could advance gameplay in new and unique directions, and this is something that they're really kind of taking to heart. Next is sort of the emergence and trends being set by the competitive gaming scene. So when you talk about esports and how they're shaping the way we look at competitive gaming, at the multiplayer experience, these are two things that are factoring into how these guys are approaching multiplayer. And of course, when it comes to Elite, you can count on deep integration there.
And sort of, do you fear, because there's always talk of, oh, well, now Modern Warfare 3 may not have sold exactly as much as Black Ops, and the sort of the sense of, because Call of Duty is really the biggest franchise out there, bar none. Is there any fear that we might be sort of at the peak right now and that it's downhill from here?
When you talk about things like fear, peak, these are not things that enter into the daily conversation at all right? You've got a studio of 250 guys that are heads down making the best game that they can, and honestly, that's all Treyarch has ever been involved with, and dare I say, any Call of Duty developer, because you can't worry about what the other guy is doing, you can't worry about the noise, it's not about that. It's about creating a game that is fun, that pulls players in, that they enjoy. And all you can do is the best you can. And I got to tell you, like, the guys back in the studio are working really hard to make that happen. And I think that what's happening is you've got sort of the complete package. You got 3 games in one. You've got a single player that's really going at it with things like Strike Force levels, zombies back, and zombies are being built in the multiplayer engine, so you can imagine how that's sort of inspiring them for a world that'll be bigger than ever. Then multiplayer, I mean, there are 3 distinct modes that are there's so much content on this disc. It's almost like 3 games, and it's like you're getting more than you've ever gotten. And that's the kind of stuff that drives these guys, not the numbers, the figures. That's all just
that's for us journalists to speculate.
Else. That's whatever. Honestly, we just want to deliver the fun.
Yeah. And you will reveal multiplayer in the near future, and then launch in November.
Correct. The game's out November 13th, 2012. Had to think about that for a minute. Out November 13th, and I have a sneaking suspicion that you should be paying attention for some multiplayer details coming out in the not so distant future.
Right. Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.